All right. Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera of Diamond Rivera Films, and you're tuned into another episode of Live Discussions with Diamond. And today I have a very special guest on this Saturday evening, the one and only Bri Jones.
Hello.
Yes, Bri, I'm so thankful to have you on the platform tonight. And at least definitely before we get started and everything, I want to give much appreciation to you and all that you have done within our dance community. Being a person, and we'll definitely get to the beginnings of it, but of course, if people don't know you as a Washington State native, kind of migrating over to the East Coast and kind of just infecting us with all of your positivity and like just vibrance and eagerness to learn, and now becoming a teacher who travels the world. I definitely am thankful to have you on this platform, not only as a guest, but a person I can definitely call a friend.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. And most people know how we start these interviews. The focus of this is to really have our guests and also have myself understand a little more about the person beyond the stage. And as well, while we're doing these interviews here tonight, we'll be having as well comments that'll be coming in real time, so you can kind of feel that interaction. But again, Bri, I thank you so much for coming. And before we get started, how are you doing during these crazy times right now?
I'm adjusting. I'm doing pretty well now. It was crazy at first, just trying to figure out how to navigate everything. It all just changed so quickly, but I think I've kind of stabilized now, and I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
No, I'm doing very well. I mean, especially even in New York, just taking it day by day. Again, I let a lot of people know is that for me, I just keep things on the safe side. I always try to wear my mask when I can. But again, it's about really also just reaching out to the people that we really do care about, just checking up on them and just seeing how they're doing around these times because everybody's affected differently. So I definitely am glad that I can have this type of platform that allows me and you to kind of connect, even though we're far away from one another.
Yes.
But for me, we've definitely talked privately, but I would definitely love for you to kind of start us off and really kind of hone in on where the beginning for Bri Jones started, especially with your dance journey.
Um, okay. Yeah, like you said, I was born in Washington State, so near Seattle. I grew up there most of my life. And my parents actually were dancers. They met in college as ballroom dance partners. And when I was born, my mom was a ballet teacher. So at about a year and a half old, she put me in her mommy and me ballet class, and I was dancing from then on. So I did ballet for 16 years, and I did hip hop and modern and gymnastics and all that sort of fun stuff. But when I was about 12, my dad decided that he wanted a father-daughter bonding experience, and he decided to take me to this salsa on one class in Seattle at Salsa con Todo. Shout out to Vasily. Awesome. But he took me there, and we would go there once a week and go get our burgers and then dance. And it was our little bonding time. I did a couple of cycles of salsa on one.
Mm-hmm.
And the maybe couple years, it was just really hard to go back and forth when I couldn't drive yet. And,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I was maybe 15 or 16, I went to a bachata social with a friend of mine, and her and I were just dancing all night. I had no clue what I was doing, but I was having an amazing time, and it was right around Thanksgiving. So there's the Seattle Salsa Congress that happens every year. And so I last minute bought this ticket, decided to go and dance. And then that's when I discovered Sapphire Dance Company because they were guest artists there. And they had a project team in Seattle. So I started doing salsa on two and just amateur team and dancing. And I just loved it so much. that I decided when I got out of high school, I had to go to New York to be on the Real Sapphire. And that was like my total dream throughout high school. And then partway through, I had always danced bachata. I was training in it on the side. I was dancing it socially. And eventually I found a partner, Leo, that you probably know. I'm sure we were all hanging out before.
Yeah.
So him and I did a partnership for like a little over a year. And after that, I just was like, I knew that this was it. And he's doing really amazing. He's in Lithuania now and dancing with his partner. And I'm super proud of him. And then I kind of went the solo route.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I think that it was a really good decision for me. I've loved it. Like, ever since I went solo, the experiences I've gotten to have, especially just working with other women, and doing like the Virago Movement, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah.
I just like got super into the whole woman empowerment, like dancing together, styling sort of vibe. And I think that's kind of where I found my place for real. Like, I loved all these other things that I was doing, but that's definitely where I'm at right now. But yeah, it was really my parents. Like, I owe it all to them. My grandparents danced too. I just came from an artistic family.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at least before we get going, I think there's probably a glitch because I can hear you clearly, but I know like the visual part is kind of paused at moments, but I definitely heard everything you were saying. But I would definitely, it's intriguing because especially people who don't know, especially from New York, that there are places, especially on the West Coast, that really start from the on one perspective, the on one styling. And I mean, on one is also in New York, but realizing in Seattle that it took you actually going to one of these congresses or your dad kind of pulling you along and you got inspired. For that, a question I definitely have is, what is the culture, especially when it comes to salsa, when it pertains to like the Seattle dance scene in a sense?
Culture as in like the people or as in the dancing?
Well, just the dance scene as a whole. Is it because as most people understand, like when you're coming to New York and it's just so vast and so massive and so many events and congresses and socials, how is that comparable to Seattle?
Gotcha. In Seattle, I feel like it's a smaller community than New York. Obviously, New York is just like has a crazy amount of people. I really loved it because when I was in Seattle, I kind of got to know like everybody that was in the scene. Of course, new people would like file in, file out, but I got to know like the core group style. Kizomba is pretty big there, and I was dancing Kizomba. They have bachata. They're working on like more sensual bachata now. At the time, it was kind of modern. And then they're doing a lot of salsa on one. They've started doing salsa on two. Dejan and Chloe are actually like helping out with that because they're doing their project teams there and training people. So they've been doing a lot of that. But dance-wise, like you can dance anything. They're really good. There's also Zouk. I don't do Zouk as much, love it, but there's an amazing scene. And I just love the community there because since it's smaller, everybody like knows each other. Everybody kind of feels like family. And you found that feeling. Like I have my group of people that I found and like I love them to death. But I would go out in New York and every night, like maybe 80% of the people were brand new. Like I had never seen them before. So I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. Like so many new people, which is an experience in itself, which is nice. You get to like always have new faces, always meet new people, find out like new friends. But I think I felt like kind of this family vibe when I was in Seattle versus like this, oh, this is a super cool place to explore when I was in New York, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. Because I think, especially I've had other guests on that have said that their experience, especially in the New York scene, it can be definitely extremely competitive, extremely just like, I'm focused on being the best, being one of the greatest dancers. Because many people who come here have that notion. But I love the people that kind of migrate to New York and bring their hospitality, bring their edge, bring their attitudes, and kind of definitely give us more to look at, and open a lot of our eyes. Because again, in other states and cities, when it comes to dancing, it's not as so much focused on or beloved as it is a lot in New York. And like they say, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But also, I believe too, it's important, like cities like Seattle, like you said, people like Dejan and Chloe, who are all the way in New Orleans, can actually come all the way to Seattle and inspire people over there as well.
It made a huge impact there, and it's done an amazing job. Yeah, and like with New York, I think honestly, or just in general, the dance scene in general, because there's been so many things going on in this time period. Like one of the things I'm grateful for is the fact that we've all been able to reflect. We've all been able to like grow a lot, or at least have that opportunity to grow because we're sitting still. Like we're still working, we're still doing things, but we're not in this rush where we don't even think about what's going on, don't think about what we're doing. And so I feel like there's been, of course, like a lot of good, a lot of bad, but a lot of growth overall in the dance scene. And I think coming back, or at least I hope, that there's going to be a different sort of culture just anywhere you go. Like more of that sort of welcoming, like, I'm just so happy to see you. I'm happy. Sort of vibe behind being places. Because, yeah, there's healthy competition, which is great. But for me, like, it stresses me out when it's just this like cutthroat sort of deal. I don't see the point in it. Like everybody can do well on their own. Like it sounds kind of kumbaya, but can we all just be friends? You know? And like
No, I definitely understand that notion, because I mean, especially my introduction to you, and you were young, coming all the way from Seattle.
I was 18.
Yeah, I remember seeing you, especially when I started filming in New York, and you were at these bachata socials a lot, and noticing, you weren't a person I had seen before, but what I loved was that you were so versatile. That you weren't just doing bachata, you wasn't just doing salsa, you was also doing kizomba, and it was like, wow, this is a person that really just feels very versatile, is very open to learning things, and then also realizing over time that, hey, you really wanted to take this serious. Like you said, your experience with Sapphire, that group really catching your eye. And then it's like, hey, I came all the way over to New York. I'm assuming you trained. And of course, I know myself, you've worked with them. You've been able to perform with them in other groups. But it really is a testament to showing how much commitment that you have to actually kind of leave your comfort zone, come all the way.
I mean, I don't know. Everyone always says that about like the fact that I like just hopped and I just decided to go to New York across the country. And then also the fact that like I just decided to take a chance and just do dance like only. Like I don't have any side job, I don't have anything else. Like it's just I jumped straight in. And I wouldn't put it down to like anything of like it taking guts or it taking this or that or bravery or anything. In a way, I just feel like I just kept falling into it. I had this thought of like, oh, I really want to be a dancer. Like, I love this so much. But to be honest, like when I was in high school and I was doing like modern and I was doing ballet and I was doing all these different styles of dance, like I was that kid that was told like, oh, I see you love this, but you should look at other options. Like I was not meant for ballet, meant for hip hop, meant for all these different things that I absolutely loved and like I was in my heart, but at that time, like it was just not clicking in my head. And so when I found Latin dance, I was like, oh my God, I found my thing. Like it was just like the most exciting moment for me. But I still like even moving to New York, I moved to New York and I actually was kind of like piggybacking because I went to college in New York. And then I was training with Sapphire on the side. And I went to New York, honestly, like, if there are anybody, like, out there that's in high school right now and, like, about to go to college, do not have this mindset. Like, think about college first. But for me, I was just like, I'm going to just go to college wherever I can dance. I'm like, that was it. Like, I was like, I'm just going to go to college, and that'll give me a place to live. Like, I can do my academics. I had, like, a career I was trying to go for, but, like, for real, I was distracted. Like, I was totally into dancing. And about, like, during my, like 2 months into my second year of college, like that was when me and Leo became partners. We looked at each other and we were both like, so are we doing this? And he was like, yup. And we just like dropped everything.
Yeah.
Just like took this, what you could call it a leap of faith, but honestly, like it just felt like the only thing that was an option. Like it felt like the only valid thing I could do at the time.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, realizing that story, because especially in New York, for many people who know in the dance scene, like when we just see new couples or new instructors come, it's it's a breath of fresh air. And for me, I really want to know, a question I have is, do you remember the moment that you realized, like, hey, I can take my learning and my choreography and all the wisdom and knowledge I've been given from these teachers. When did you find it or know when the right moment was to say, like, hey, now I can really start teaching?
Okay, I'm gonna be 100% honest. Like,
Yes.
I never had that feeling. I've been a teacher my whole life. Like, I taught language, I've taught music, I've taught other styles of dance. Like, I choreographed kids' plays and like taught elementary schools. I've always just been a teacher, but it was just right. So I've always known that I had the skill to teach something, but for me to feel just totally like I'm the shit, like I can do this. I'm a Latin dance instructor. Like honestly, it started out like before Leo and I decided like let's make this jump. It was literally just like oh, this is kind of fun. This is kind of cute. Like let's do this. And then it was really just other people asking for it. And they kept asking like, oh, do you do classes? Oh, do you do this? And at first I was like, nope, go to these people, like totally like pointing to my instructors. And then eventually it just got to this point where I was like, maybe I'm just not believing in myself enough. And I just have to like, of course, if I don't know something, make sure I pass them off to someone who does. But there are these things that I solidly know. And I just kind of was just like, okay, like to hell with it. I'm going to just start teaching. And it took me a long time to really own it and feel comfortable with it. And at this point, like the things that I do teach, I'm like, cool, like I feel confident in it. But when I first started, I was not confident at all.
And what you said there really, it speaks volumes, because a lot of people think, and this is coming from your honesty, because a lot of dancers or students feel that the instructors have this kind of ego, like, I know everything I'm doing, I know everything that's supposed to happen, I know how you're supposed to look. But again, hearing from you, being a person that's kind of being asked now to teach, instead of putting your stamp on it and saying, I'm going to start teaching with Leo and doing this, that people really were just engaged to what you guys are creating and really wanted to learn and soak up that knowledge from you. It shows a lot, because I could see the fan base for not just the both of you, but individually both of you guys were getting, and people really respecting what you were doing because you were putting in the work. I would see you at tons of congresses, tons of festivals, socials, and really you're putting in that work of socializing with people, networking, doing different projects, collaborations. And that was really amazing. And for me, I started seeing that you were really becoming, besides a couple with Leo and doing these routines and demos and classes, you started to make a name for yourself as well as a solo artist. And for me, I would love to know, especially before being a solo artist, when you started this partnership with Leo or started teaching, what were kind of the pros and cons of the scene? Was it an automatic, like, amazing reception, or was there some kind of pullback?
It's half and half, honestly. Like, and it's people that have already existed in the scene versus the new students that are excited about dancing. So from the people, like obviously we had a set of people that was a decent size. Like it was enough to fill a classroom, or not classroom, dance studio. Good gosh. But weekly and whatever with our classes. And so we had this like very solid following of students that believed in us. However, the amount of backlash we were getting from just people that were already in the scene, and it was, I think part of it was them thinking the same thing I had in my head of like, oh, this girl hasn't been doing this long enough, or this girl, this guy hasn't been dancing long enough, or whatever. They just didn't feel like we were ready to be instructors. And then there's also the other half of like that competition aspect we were already talking about. And oh no, if these people come in and like you see students liking them, then our students are getting pulled away, which I feel like that's a mindset that we need to get out of, because first of all, students need to learn from multiple instructors. Having one instructor, they're just going to turn into a clone. And then second, it's like, if students are going to somebody and they're going away from you, find out why and see how you can take your level up, right? But it's just this like feeling of like being threatened and just wanting to put somebody else down versus being threatened, and so you lift yourself above again. And it was just those two forces kind of going, and what kept us kind of like in it and having faith in it was our students. But for sure, and there was a whole bunch of backlash, and even today sometimes I still get some stuff, definitely not as much, but it's just there's always going to be people that are against you, and that's life. Oh, you're silent.
Gotcha. Sorry. Are you able to hear me? Sorry. So I know, and the reason I did ask you this because I want people to understand, especially in our community, our scene, everything's not just roses. Everything is not just easy. Everything doesn't just look glamorous. There is a behind the scenes of understanding what it took to get there, and realizing that you, even though you're teaching in many studios, you're doing demos in different places, you're having private lessons and such, it's still a journey you have to go through, and it really tests you. And especially now you're with a partnership with someone else and traveling and realizing like all of the trials and tribulations that you will go through. I think it's really important that you know the support systems that you have, because I think that's a big thing people need or should acquire our support systems, because when you start traveling and when you start going places and just too many ears, too many people talking to you, and it's really fun. It's good to have that balance of people that are just going to keep you leveled, and just keep you humble, And for me, I was really thankful just to see a dancer like you that really was just focused and determined on being the best or the greatest dancer that she could be. And I started seeing, especially even after the partnership with Leo, that you also had this movement. I don't know if it was before or after the Virago. Hopefully, I'm not saying it wrong. The Virago movement.
The Virago movement.
Yes.
Yeah. So that actually, like, I had thought of it before, but I like put it into action after. So that was kind of like my breakout moment of, okay, I'm going solo. Let's just like launch something.
Mm-hmm.
Josue. But I threw out the Virago movement because I was like, okay, gotta get a new angle, like reevaluate myself. What do I want to do? When you go out of a partnership, it's like, okay, starting all over, And so I totally like took a second and I was like, what would be more meaningful to me? And I just wanted to like work with other women, other femmes, anybody who just like wanted to come and hang out with my vibe was totally welcome. And so I launched the Virago Movement. There's a website. If you just look it up, theviragomovement.com, it has like the little mission statement and all that sort of stuff. But basically it's just like, let's get together, let's dance. We don't have to like do any crazy amazing choreo. We're going to do a choreo that makes us look good, but it's about like lifting spirits and lifting confidence. And I actually even like would offer free champagne at first. Like when I could do in-person classes, I was like, all right, show up a bit early. I bought some champagne. It's an experience. Like drink like a glass. It'll loosen you up. And then we're going to just like move it and just be happy and have fun. And like, it was also partially because I saw that competition that there was. And I also noticed that as a follow, like I took a moment and I was like, I don't have any female friends right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the people I was dancing with were leads who generally were men. And now,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is freaking amazing. I love that anybody's doing whatever they want to and taking any role. But at the time, the only people I knew that were dancers were guys. And I was like, I want a group of girls.
Yeah.
So it was also just like, okay, let's actually meet each other. Like, we're all sitting there and standing next to each other and not talking for 4 to 5 hours a night, which weird. Like, you can just stand next to each other and be like, yo, I know your face for like years and not actually even talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm. That is, oh wow, that's powerful what you said, because that's a big thing. That is a big thing.
Like, there's people that I've known for like 7 years because I've been in the dance scene with them or something. And then I finally have a conversation with them 7 years later and I'm like, you're a cool person. I wish we spoke 7 years ago. Like, it's just ridiculous. And so I would extend the time of like the workshops. And so it wasn't just like an hour, which is the cookie cutter sort of deal. I would do an hour and a half or 2 hours. And it was like mingle at the beginning, have champagne, dance together, and like give a chill ending so people could still kind of talk and walk out and like have fun and get to know each other and hopefully trade numbers and talk outside of the workshop. But that was like the goal. And then I started doing it when I was traveling and I would like host workshops. Obviously, I wasn't bringing champagne into random countries and
Yeah, absolutely.
I was trying to create that same environment whenever I was doing any styling workshops. I would call it the Virago Movement style and we would just like dance together. It's usually like a heels Latin fusion. It wasn't always totally just bachata or just salsa or just
Mm-hmm.
it was just movements to make us feel good and little choreos.
Yeah, and I mean, what you just said is important, because that right there, having a safe space, especially for women, because again, like you said, when you're in a kind of it can feel like a male dominated or oriented type of sport in a sense. Don't get me wrong, there's a good ratio of women to men who dance, but you realizing that a lot of the people you came in contact with or befriended were men, and having the understanding of, hey, maybe I can create something that can bring women together. I think that's really beneficial and something that's really needed, and it definitely should have more of those type of movements happening. Because again, it's not really about just being exclusive, but hey, sometimes you do want to be around people that can understand you a lot more, and having that safe space of, especially with women, coming together and just dancing, but also getting to know one another and just kind of creating that sort of bond and that friendship. And for me, I definitely would like to know, from when you had started dancing and from Seattle and then coming into New York, what was the moment that made you say, this is the profession that I want long term?
I'm going to be honest again. I was in college. I was in an honors program.
Mm-hmm.
And in an honors program on a scholarship, you have to be physically present a certain number of days in the class. It doesn't matter how well you test. It doesn't matter if you're actually like keeping up with the curriculum or not. You have to just have your ass in the class for like a certain amount of time. And it was ridiculous. Like, I couldn't miss more than like maybe 3 days. And I was on Sapphire training with them. And they would have like, I did Zaoko, and then I started training with pro. I started doing my bachata career before I like totally started performing with their pro team or anything. But I was with them and I was doing a lot of shows, like, because I was on their ladies team, I was on Zaoko, and I was training with the pro. And so my dancing, like, I would sleep probably 3 or 4 hours a night and then wake up, put my butt in class. And then it got to the point where we had so many shows on the weekends because at the time, like, all the clubs were open, we were able to go to festivals, like all these different things, that I literally was going to flunk out of college because I was choosing to do the shows over like going to class, even though I was like up with the curriculum. And so I had that moment where I'm just like, okay, I really need to reflect with myself right now, because I don't want to like go to the point where I drive my academics down because I want that open in the future just because I'm like super into this dance thing. And so I thought, you know, like I was at the time, I think like 19, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like take a break. And so I technically like took a leave of absence and withdrew from classes. And then I just never went back to now, and still not back, but it's still an open option. And it's something I'm sure like I'll go back to school at some point and want to like do more. But I figured it's better to do it like right now when I'm younger, my body can handle it. It's the time to kind of like go out, travel the world, explore, do all these things, get it out of my system. So that was really what it was. It wasn't like this, like, oh my God, this is my calling. It was like, oh shit, I need to think about this. And that really pushed me into it. So.
Wow. I mean, and that's the thing is sometimes you're going through one obstacle to get to another and realizing like, hey, you have to make a determination on what's the main priority right now. And because just like you said, with school, many people have to understand the schooling system will always be around. You can always, if you choose to make time to go back, you will. And at the end of the day, especially with dance, we've realized for a lot of us dancers, the careers can be short or long depending on you. Mm-hmm. Meaning is the amount of times you performed over the years, the injuries that can occur can really either prolong your career or shorten it. And realizing like, hey, you have something going right now. Let me focus on this, and I can always come back into my education. And that's an honest adult answer, because most people still sometimes don't even have the right answer or an answer for that. And for me to see that, you know, you chose to go really and focus into your dancing full time in a sense, because you realized you were lacking or slacking from your education because of these shows and just the stress that can go along with it. I think it was very honorable on your part to just kind of make that decision that mattered the most to you, instead of still trying to juggle both at some times and just kind of driving yourself crazy.
I think I was caught up also just in the like societal pressure of what am I supposed to do right now? What do I really want to do? I think if I was able to get out of that mindset of like feeling the pressure of needing to do something for other people, I probably would have just gone straight into dancing. Honestly, like I'm glad I did what I did. It definitely opened my eyes to different options as well. However, dance was definitely like the right decision. Like now I'm 100% confident in it. At the time I was just like, this is kind of what I need to do, but it's grown into like such a huge part of me, like just hobby wise, like career wise, everything, to where I honestly don't know who I would be if I wasn't doing what I am right now.
And for me, then a question I definitely have is, of course, with all of your dancing experience, I know you had the opportunity to really travel and kind of network and get to know artists from all over the world. So I definitely would love to know, like, what are some of the most memorable places you have been, or even some of the most memorable people you've met, or even, and also like some really like performances that really stick in your mind that you absolutely loved?
Okay. Part by part. Performances, because it'll be quicker. There's a couple that I've done. There's one that was the first time I did a solo, and that was in Mexico. I didn't even debut it at like a social. I just went straight up onto the stage and debuted it at the I Love Bachata Festival in Mexico. Mm-hmm. I think that was last year. I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I know it sounds surprising probably because I've been dancing for so long, but I was always in groups. Like I was doing solo choreos with like a group. I was doing a ballet recital. I was doing a hip hop performance. I was doing team choreographies for like salsa or bachata or whatever. Just even like partner work, but it's me and another person. That was the first time I got on the stage alone and just did a whole dance. And I was shaking like crazy because I actually have like horrible stage fright. I get really nervous in front of people. But I was like freaking out about it. And then I got on, and then when I got off, it was like just this feeling of like, I did it, I got it. And then like, I just felt so empowered to do it like again and again and again. And then was a show I did in Dubai on like this cruise ship, but it was docked. And it was this social that they had. That was also, I think, last year, actually. It was a social that they were doing where like a bunch of people come. It's like once a month. And it was with my friend Saj. He's an artist in Dubai. And I had been brought out to stay in Dubai for like a month or so and help train a team and teach some classes and just kind of overall help the scene grow a little bit for bachata. And Saj really wanted to do a show together. And so we decided that we were going to do a show, but it was partially kizomba, like urban keys, not kizomba. And then partially semba, and then partially like Afro house sort of stuff. And we
so
were
like a fusion of things.
Like dance. And we literally made it up within less than 2 days and then performed it on this like cruise ship thing. And just the energy was amazing. I was having so much fun. And I think it was one of those times where like usually on a stage, like I'm smiling and making faces, but it's very choreographed in a way. Like I practice those. But I think that this past year overall, but also those two in particular, were the first times I've started actually enjoying being on stage and being like present in the moment. It. So those two definitely like stick out in my mind. And there's been other shows that I've absolutely loved doing, but I think of those two first.
Gotcha.
And then as far as traveling goes, like I went on a pretty much 7-month world tour straight last year. And it's insane. I was gone for 3 months out of the country, out of the US. And then I came back and did a month in the US, but I was still touring within it. And then I went 3 months again outside of the US. And the people I met and like the places I went, like it was just insane to me. I'm a very spontaneous person. So that tour was like planned fairly last minute when it comes to like a tour. And it helped me grow so much as a person, and I made so many friends along the way. And probably like everywhere I went was beautiful, but my favorite like top 3 places I went to were probably in Dubai, just because of the friends I met. Like I have a really close group of friends there, and like I've been to Dubai a few times now, and I go back there, and I want to visit again soon when it's allowed. But it's just those people make it for me. And then I really adored Turkey for a similar reason. I love the culture. I think it's beautiful. I taught in Izmir at a festival, and I also taught in Istanbul. And then the group of people I met there, everything, that was amazing. One of my favorites. And then I really loved, I went to Tanzania, and I did a festival in Tanzania. And it was just, I love that one because it put me out of my comfort zone in like the best way. And I had an amazing time. It was this festival that was the first edition of it. It was really, really small because they're like just starting to grow the scene over there. But everybody was just like, and I'm talking about the students, the instructors, the organizer, everybody was just so happy and eager to dance. Like they were soaking anything up. And they wanted to dance 24/7. They did a kind of interesting sort of like rooming situation that I actually loved. They like bought like this apartment or rented an apartment for all the artists. So all of us were staying in the same place for an entire week because they wanted us to be there for extra time. And we were just like making up dances together. We made up this like little show, choreographed it, performed it at the end of the week. Like we were dancing on the beach. We were teaching like all these like different students that were just trying to learn. They were doing urban keys, kizomba, salsa, and bachata. And just the vibe of that event was amazing to me. It was just what I want every community to kind of feel like, but just on a bigger scale. You know, like I want the community to grow, to be big, but keep that sort of vibe of just like everybody's like family, everybody is like having fun learning. There's like no egos involved whatsoever. And they just are there because they all love to dance, and that's it, period. So those are probably the ones that stick out. I also went to like Spain, which was awesome, and I learned a whole bunch. I trained when I was there. But those ones stuck out to me the most.
Yeah, man, and it's amazing to hear places like Tanzania, Dubai, of course with Spain, but just realizing that how much dance has affected you and been helped you be able just to socialize with so many people all over the world, but also gain kind of that family aspect with people that if without dance you probably would have never met. And realizing how lucky we are, especially in this community, to have those opportunities to travel. I think it's a rarity nowadays that some of our favorite dancers really have those experiences, but really take advantage of it in a way that it benefits them, and they can be able to create those pockets of families in different countries and all come together under one thing that we all love, which is dance. And one thing I would love to know, though, is as a female solo artist that not only follows but leads, how has that been? How has that journey been? Because, of course, you've worked with different groups, you've worked with a couple routine with Leo, but becoming a solo artist, how is that dynamic of being a follower but also a leader?
I love it. It's been a learning process. I always kind of led for like fun when I had a partner. However, I had to like take it a lot more serious when I became a solo artist because I'm traveling. I'm not just teaching lady styling stuff and things for the Virago movement. Even though like that was my main thing, I was also teaching partner work classes, and sometimes they would hand me a follow and sometimes they would hand me a lead. Because when you don't have a partner, either I have to like already know somebody at the event and be like, yo, can you come help me out? Like just
Yeah.
hour, or I just have to like be assigned somebody. Sometimes even like I wasn't assigned anybody, I'm grabbing random students that aren't like shaking in their boots and trying to like lead them through these movements in front of everybody and be like, this is what we're gonna do. Just breathe. Let's dance. So like I had to know my shit as a follow and as a lead to be able to teach like that. And so that was really why I like decided to learn it. After the fact though, like I just have fun. Like I love doing both sides. They feel different. Like sometimes I'll be in a mood when I go out dancing and I'm like, tonight is a following night. And then there's other nights where I go out and I'm like, I am so leading tonight. Like, come on people, let's go. And it's just so fun for me. But it's also interesting to see like how it's received in different countries.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like when I was in Dubai with my friends that I was like, that became my little circle,
Yeah.
it was, we were all trading, all doing whatever. But I noticed that whenever we would go out to like a public place and like dance at a social, and I decided to like lead a girl, or for the love of God, decided to like lead Saj or something for like 30 seconds, the like looks that we were getting and the way that like people were reacting to it was just like, you can just tell that it's new. And honestly, like when I was there, they were kind of freaking out about it. But now after the fact, like I see videos and people are starting to do it more. I think it's getting more comfortable.
Yeah.
But I went to Turkey, and when I was in Turkey at that festival, literally like there was a line along the entire ballroom waiting, and it was like girls and guys. And like every single like song that came, like I would just switch roles depending on who wanted to dance. And so like they were so open to it, and they were all trying. Like I would have girls come up to me and be like, can I try leading you? And I'm like, oh hell yeah, let's do it. And so that was cool. And Spain, it was like felt normal. In the United States, it feels like, I think now it's normalizing. Like, especially with people like Tina Cavicchio. Hi. Hello, I see hi from London. Hi.
Yes.
But Tina Kamichio, like, I love her. She's amazing. Kyla as well, who dances with her frequently. Like, they are definitely, like, spearheading the whole, everybody, like, let's just get rid of these roles.
Yeah, the gender roles. That was something, yeah.
Oh my God, it drives me insane. I love it. And I've actually worked with Tina, and she, like, normally in our workshops, like, she'll lead, I'll follow. However, when we're, like, dancing and hanging out, whatever, we switch back and forth, and oh my gosh, she is freaking amazing. But she's done amazingly, and I know that when she first started dancing, I've seen interviews of hers where she mentions that when she first started trying to lead, like, she was getting a lot of backlash for it, and hard, and she would go to a social and not really be able to dance because nobody wanted to do it. And I think that between, like, her and then other artists in the scene, and just also just the community kind of, like, opening their minds with LGBTQ, and, like, just the thought that a certain gender does not have to be assigned a certain role, you know, those sorts of, like, mind-opening concepts, it's been changing. But definitely, like, when I'm traveling, it's received in all sorts of ways, just depending on where I am.
Gotcha. And for me too, I would really love to know, before we kind of get into the present day of what you've been going through, especially with just like teaching, with everything going on with COVID, what are some things, especially that we wouldn't know, like the passions that you have besides dance? What is something that you can kind of let myself and the audience know? And while we're talking, we have Kyla.
Oh, I love you, Kyla. I just shouted you out. I don't know if you heard it, but
I definitely think she heard it for sure.
okay. But okay, passions besides dancing. Let's see. I grew up in, like, so going into my background besides just dance story growing up, my family, most of them are, like, entrepreneurs. And then I have, like my uncle is, like, a neuro engineer for Harvard, now Yale. My aunt is, like, a biology research professor. She was at MIT, now she's at Yale with him. Like, my grandparents created their own design construction business and, like, ran it. Like, I come from a family, which I feel very fortunate for this. Like, I come from a family where just doing your own thing and kind of walking to the beat of your own drum is normal for us. And I know that there's other people who aren't born into, like, that sort of environment, and so it's, like, feels like this scary sort of thing to jump out on your own. For me, I think that's part of why it just never felt like this, like, weird leap to be a dancer. But because of, like, that, like, I was really close with my uncle growing up, the one that's a neuroscientist, and so I, like, totally fell in love with neuroscience. Like, I thought it was, like, super cool. And there was also, like, I knew, like, surgeons and stuff. For a while, I thought I wanted to be an anesthesiologist, but just, like, medicine in general, I was super, super into. Like, I would go and sit in on surgeries when I was younger because I had, like, little, like, apprenticeship type things through my school. And it ended up, like, diving down to where I figured out the brain was definitely it, neuroscience or psychology. So with dancing, I've kind of gone more towards the psychology side of it. I've actually done a little bit of, like, dance teaching that was in partnership with a dating coach and psychologist, and so I was, like, helping people through dance grow with whatever they were working on at the moment. So that was definitely a big thing for me. Just kind of, like, side hobby wise, I like playing guitar. Sing a little bit. Decently or not is, like, up in the air. It's for you guys to decide. And I love horseback riding. I grew up horseback riding since I was 5. I'm trying to think of other little random things. I grew up drawing too. I was just, like, total Miss Artsy. Like, anything art I was into. Yeah, I went to a specialized, like, arts high school. I actually, like, auditioned to get into this, like, arts high school, and I was a dance major. So,
but
like,
you were all kind of in the arts, no matter if it was dancing and just drawing. Yeah, I get it.
friends were singer-songwriters, or like they were artists, like they would draw, or they were like other dancers, or they were like musicians. And so I was just totally immersed in that world from when I was about 14. Like that's when you're a freshman in high school. So from 14 on, it was literally just art for me.
Wow. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, knowing that you like to play guitar, knowing that your family's really into education, that you're really into neuroscience. These are things that are awesome to hear because, again, I think like we don't really always get to have these type of conversations at these congresses and socials because we're always just kind of focused on having fun and getting through the day. But again, it's awesome just to hear this type of information from you because I know someone who was watching this would probably say, "Wow, the stuff she's interested in, I am as well."
Yeah, no, I was a nerd. I was like top 3 in my class, graduating, and like straight A, got scholarships to college. I was like totally that person that you would think would be on the track to be a neuroscientist, and then I went and like dove off the side.
Because again, like you said, your family
Like,
is really heavy in education, and to kind of be the as they call it sometimes the black sheep of I'm going in this other direction.
they've rolled with it well because for them they put it in the mindset of entrepreneur. So
Yes.
like actually, and this is like the side that I'm talking about is my mom's side. My dad, and they're the ones that I grew up closer to just because I was literally like living probably within 30 minutes of all of them driving. And my dad's side, I love a whole bunch. My grandma and my grandpa on that side are actually dancers. Like they still take dance classes. And so I got some of that from them. Like they would take me to ballroom classes with them when I was younger. But yeah, the side of the family that I grew up with, like, and spent more time with was just honestly, like, as long as you believed in yourself, you had your plan, they're like, all right, cool, go do it. And so it was really empowering for me as a kid to have that sort of mindset.
No, and that's amazing because again, what you had was a support system, people that did believe in you and that just wanted to make sure that you had a plan for whatever you wanted or intended to do.
Yeah.
Because that's, I think, the most important thing is no matter what you do, whatever passion you have, as long as you have a plan, a vision in place, that's a definitely a great help because sometimes going into it too spontaneous without a goal in mind, a lot of times the message or the focus gets lost. And for me, I can definitely say this helps my transition into now understanding that the times that we're in with COVID. We've definitely, me, you, and others have definitely seen the influx of a lot of teachers now taking their talents online and offering these online classes. And for me, I would love to know what has that experience been like of kind of being before really close up to your students to now kind of being behind the screen and watching them.
It's been an adjustment. Like the reason, like one of the main reasons I love my job besides like, oh, it's cool I get to travel and like meet all these people is I love teaching, and I specifically love teaching one-on-one. Like I love actually like having a direct connection with my student and being able to like guide them and help them with what they want to work on and like make them feel good. So this switch has been definitely, like, it wasn't so easy for me at first. I've adjusted to it now and I feel pretty comfortable. But first of all, like Zoom is now like the app that everybody knows how to use. I had no clue at first. Like I was sitting there and I tried to like turn on Zoom and like I was trying to figure out if they could like even see me, if I was facing the right way. I was waving my leg in the air being like, which leg does this look like? And like I am really like, I can seem very composed with all my like social media and stuff, but I'm just a goof. And so like that was an adjustment. And then also like the feedback for people. I tried, my first class I did was a Facebook Live in like a private group, and I did like this stuff. And although I love it for reaching a lot of people and for like it's really good for that, like I couldn't see my students and it was driving me insane. And so like that's when I went into Zoom, and so I'm able to kind of like give it, and I love that you could like put the music through. And so that app has honestly like saved me with my teaching. And then I do workshops every so often. At first I was doing them kind of more regularly. Like I was doing like this weekly seeing, and it was like every month was a new concept that I would do. And now that I'm realizing it's not so much of like a short-term thing for us to be in this isolation, I've gone to like pop-ups, and I'll like pop up one like group workshop maybe like once a month. And it's just totally random. It's not really a schedule to it. And then my main teaching I've been doing is just mostly private lessons. And I've also been doing mentoring. Like I teach people who want to be instructors how to teach. I have like a program for that, and I've been like training some instructors through that. And I find that super, super like gratifying. Like I love that, because I'm teaching them how to connect with their students, and it grows their communities where they are. And then the private lessons, I've figured out how to try to put my personality through on the screen. Like I've never been the person that wants to read a book on a computer, like grab the paper. Like my attention on the screen is limited. However, being able to like interact live, I just do all these like live private classes. I see them, I give them feedback, like depending on what kind of learner they are. Like if they're a physical learner, I've had to like bypass this, but I can't touch them. I can't like move people anymore, which is like a really big thing when you're a teacher. You just go and you're like, there, you're fixed, and then you keep going, and like can't do that. So I've gotten into some interesting antics. I make people like dance on walls. I make them lean against like towel rods to pop their chest out. Like I do interesting things. I've had people dance with a chair so that they pretend they have their partner and like can see how you're supposed to walk around. Like I was teaching Kizomba private, and like a Saida, and I was like for the lead Saida, and I was like, okay, push your chair, it's gonna go straight, you go around it. So like it's kind of fun in a way for me, because it feels like a puzzle that I got to solve on like how to help people have it click. For other types of learners, like if they learn orally, if they learn visually, like it's pretty easy for them to transition. But definitely, like I teach differently depending on who I'm teaching, and being able to adapt to those different learning styles online was probably the hardest thing for me to figure out. But now that I have it, like I feel solid. And I like it. I do still wish, like, I'm never going to prefer online over being in person with somebody, but it's okay for me.
No, honestly, I definitely understand. But to see that you've been able to, in a sense, capitalize on this kind of new alternative, even though it hasn't been that new, but realizing that a lot of our instructors have to kind of turn to that alternative to even find a profit, but still connect with your students and your fan base. I think you've been one of the many artists that's still been able to do that consistently and be able to connect with your students so they still have that relationship with you. And that actually helps me now transition into my last topic, is really to understanding from you, Bri, is what does it mean to be a leader and a teacher in our dance community?
That definition for me has changed recently and rapidly. When I first started kind of going to a role that would be considered like leadership in the dance community, like my brain was only on dance. Like I didn't think about the whole, like being a whole person and like showing people how to like basically giving an example like outside of the dance world. Like I was just like, here, this is like how you dance. I'll show you how to dance. Like here, look at these videos. You can aspire to this, right? Like something like that. And like, let me show you how to do it. I don't want it to look like it's unreachable. I'm going to help you reach it. And so like just being approachable has always been something for me. Like being approachable, talking to everybody, like just being open. That's been a thing for me. However, it was only in dance. And I think especially in these past like 4 or 5 months, when we've been kind of sitting and all of these topics that have needed to come up are rising up and being brought to attention and all that, I had a moment where, and it was actually at the very beginning when the Black Lives Matter movement was like going full force. And I was talking to my boyfriend actually, and I'm like, I never make political posts, which honestly, like now in hindsight, it's not even a political thing. It's just like a human rights thing.
Yeah.
And like, I shouldn't even have like thought of it that way. But for me, it was like basically just the thought of, oh, I never post anything that isn't about dancing. Like I just post dance stuff. And I felt like at that moment, I was like, this is finally something where I can't just be quiet, because my job like is literally, first of all, I'm a white female instructor teaching Latin dance, and white Americans did not make these styles of dance. I have to be really like careful of effective to the cultures and the original like traditional movements and things of each style. Like I have to make sure that I'm being respectful of that, which at the beginning of my classes, like I always talk about, like I teach a lot of sensual bachata, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always been like, hey, yo, we're going to do sensual bachata, but in case nobody has ever told you this, like bachata's from the Dominican Republic. There's like Dominican traditional bachata that happened before sensual. Sensual is like an adaptation. It's a new style that came from Europe. And like I have to give like that whole spiel, because I feel like a lot of instructors as leaders, they either just know it and think like it's a no-brainer, or they just don't find it as important as like teaching movement. And so for me, that's always been a thing. But when the Black Lives Matter movement started popping up, I was just like, and it's always been around, but it was just really, really, really in your face in that moment. I was like, I have to make a post. And so I started posting things, and I started sharing things, and I started like having conversations. And within that, I was like, okay, starting to like make moves in this sort of realm. I'm happy I'm doing it. Like I'm happy other people are jumping on, like seeing other leaders in the dance community that were also speaking up was awesome. And like I think it brought everybody together. But like I was saying, like most of my friends and most of the people that I like care about, the people that kind of in a way raised me, like I started in the dance community when I was like 12. Like I said, like in the Latin dance community, like if I didn't say something, if I didn't do something, I was basically saying fuck you to all those people that have like cared for me for so long and done so much for me. And so that was the first one. And then there's also been a lot of stuff rising up about that kind of is in relation to me too, but it's all about like these sexual assault sort of cases that have been happening in the dance community, or like people being disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just all these different things that have just been coming up now because we finally have a chance to stop and talk about them.
Yeah.
For me, like just wrapping back up to your questions, overall, it's been this, I now have to think of my job not only as dancing, but also think about it now that I am starting to have a bigger platform. Like, can't just do dance. Like, I also have to like speak up for these other things and like show them that if you're going to be in this community, this is what we expect, and this is how you need to treat people, what needs to happen. And like when someone's not doing that, being the person that can actually, not like honestly, like the public call outs, I can see if things get extreme, but like first of all, just like going and talking to somebody or messaging them and being like, hey, yo, like, did you know that this thing that you're doing isn't really cool?
Yeah.
You know, having that conversation with them. I find that to be more of a responsibility in my head now than it was before.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I
Sorry,
mean, no. Honestly, it's fine, because everything you're saying makes total sense, because it does come to a point, and like you explain, you being a white female in a Latin dance scene, or a multicultural scene, that especially with the dances that you are learning or teaching, that you see people of different backgrounds, different nationalities, ethnicities, races, and realizing that you do have more of a social responsibility to the people around you. And even like you said, touching on the topics that, especially in our dance community, we've been talking about in terms of the sexual assault, a lot of stuff that has been going wrong in our scene for so many years. But like I've told many people on this platform and had discussions that for us, I think the biggest problem was a lot of us either knew what was going on and were more focused on having fun at these events. And if it didn't affect them, it didn't affect them.
It's like, it's affect me, it's not my problem, which we need to
Yes, and that's a huge problem. Like, it's basically, if it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect me. And realizing that, unfortunately, with this COVID and the quarantine and many people being really kind of secluded in their homes a lot of times, and having kind of those times to kind of decompress if they can, and really kind of figure out what's really important, what's really happening, what really concerns them, and people like myself and others who've been in the scene a long time speaking up or supporting those who can talk about their stories of having these women that me and you know can feel brave enough to speak about their experiences, no matter backlash or support, just being kind of really being transparent with their experience, knowing how personal it is.
Yeah. And like, honestly, power to them, because that is so hard. Like, it is so hard to be able to come out with something like that. And so the people that are actually like truthfully like speaking their truth, and then to the people that are actually just supporting it and like telling them that it's okay, like that is what this scene should be. We should be able to like support each other and take care of each other and like fundraise and do things for each other. And yes, to a certain extent, like we're not, you may not personally know everybody. However, it's a scene, it's a family. It feels huge, but it's really not that big.
No, it's small.
It's like after traveling through it, it's like, yeah, I've gone a lot of places, and like I still can name off most of the names of like the people in the dance scene that I've met, right? And it's just, you gotta take care of each other, because some people don't have families that are taking care of them. Some people don't have that group of friends to like help build them back up. Like, of course, your first responsibility is yourself, but if you have more to give it. You know?
Wow. And that right there is excellent way of putting it. And again, it's for me, I tell everyone, anyone that has a story, male or female or whatever you choose to identify, is that I am no longer about fighting for you. I'm about fighting with you. Because a lot of times fighting for you is taking you out of the equation. And for me, I had to learn from many people who have talked to me about their experience and saying, hey, if you want to support us, speak up with us. When we're talking, we want you to be there. When you see something wrong, you say something. And those are the steps to help our scene become better, because when people like myself are exposing the negativeness in our scene head on, straight on, instead of just holding it and waiting, it does a lot of more good than bad. Because again, if we want to see things change, we have to make the change. And for me, it's like just being able to speak to you tonight was amazing, because I got to learn so much more about you. And I know the audience as well has. And for me, I always do this with a lot of my guests. I really would love to know if you do have any last words for myself and the guests.
Yeah, I guess like just two-part, just kind of based off of the things that I've learned, is like the first is just, if there's something in your heart, if there's something you want to do it. Because there's always going to be people that are just not for it, for whatever reason, but it really shouldn't matter. As long as you're not harming somebody else, do what makes you happy, because literally there's no reason to live your life miserable. There is no good reason to. And then second, based off of what we were just talking about, like what I said before, like if you have more to give it. Like, take responsibility for other people. Don't look at some random, like say it's some random person, right? Say you don't know them and they're having some issue, or there's people going against them and it's just not right, or there's something going on. Like, switch it in your mind for a second. Think, oh, that's my sister, that's my brother, that's my best friend. Like, would you want the random stranger to stick up for them because you're not there? Or would you want the random stranger to be like, hey, not my responsibility, goodbye? Like, just take care of yourself, take care of each other.
And those two notions definitely, again, are really important and needs to be spread throughout our whole communities, because they're very simplistic notions, but a lot of people, again, can have that ignorance and not understand. And it's amazing too that we have Tina here. We have Tina here. We have Sao Sabroso here. And again, these are just two, as well with Kyla and others who are watching. These are the moments that, you can see, especially in our scene, the people that really do support you and that do love you and that care for you and want you to just be the best you can be. And for me, just being able to know you for so many years and just seeing that you really are focused on being the best person you can be at all times, and you're growing. It's about growth. You're never not learning. And I really appreciate that I was able to meet a person like yourself, because, hey, nowadays, connection is more important than ever. And it's always great to rekindle those friendships with people you haven't seen in a while. And like yourself, you said you've been traveling. I remember you doing tours, coming to New York for maybe one weekend and then kind of leaving the next weekend.
It was insane. But
yeah, and honestly, I could be nothing more than proud, because a person, again, who did come from Washington, coming to New York, really making a name for herself here, and then being able to travel, being able to socialize, being able to network and create your brand, your way, I think is very important, from your workings with Sapphire, from your working with Leo, and also from your personal work. You're just growing and elevating, and the trajectory is there. I mean, and even as we're closing out, we still have, Daniel Collins here. And even, Saul saying, she has grown so much. And yeah, it's true. I've seen it, and many others have seen it. And, for me, I'm thankful that we have a person like you that, again, is genuine, that really just wants to see the best for everyone. And I definitely thank you so much again for coming tonight. And, at least before we go, I would love for you to kind of give myself, but also the audience, some contact information on how they'll be able to reach you for the future.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So pretty simplistic. If you want to find me on anything, you type in Bri Jones Dance. So it's BriJonesDance. That's on Instagram, TikTok. It's BriJonesDance@gmail.com. Like everything on Facebook. My business page is Bri Jones Dance. Type that in anywhere, YouTube, whatever, you'll find me. So.
Oh, awesome. Very simplistic and to the point. I mean, and it's perfect, because at least just to type it in and there you go. And, honestly, I'm very thankful that we were able to have this meeting. I know you're all the way in Mexico, and thankfully I can say this, even with the visual kind of choppy at points, I've heard everything you said. I've listened to everything you've said, and I really do feel that I've learned so much more about you. And I really do appreciate your contribution to our community. And if no one has said it, I will say it, because, again, you are important, and we definitely can't wait till we all get back to a new normal, that we can all have these dances again and socialize, because it is important that, again, we do connect in some way. So, Bri, I thank you so much. I hope you're having a beautiful time out there in Mexico. I miss you. I love you. I love what you've given our community and more. And I hope you, again, stay safe. And definitely, I could tell all my guests, this is our first interview, but it surely won't be our last. And I definitely want to catch up with you in the later months for you to give us an update on what Bri is up to next. And I definitely can't wait.
Of course, me either. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So again, thank you so much, Bri, for taking the time to come on the platform. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. And you have listened to another episode of Live Discussions with Diamond, featuring Bri Jones. And everyone, have a good night.
Have a good night.